guys, so I'm just going to do a review of the Autumn Nation series that's just gone. I did do a previous video where I gave some predictions of the scores and how I thought certain teams were going to go. So I've got the actual scores here. I'm going to run through and just do a quick comparison about what I had, and then also talk about a couple of other things that caught the eye during the series. I thought it was fantastic rugby played all round. But yeah, let's go through a couple of the ones I had. So if you want to just refresh, I've the last video, then go back to that to see what scores I had for it, and to see what scores you had for them. But I'll run through them here anyway. So I had, for the first game, we had the first weekend, round one, we had Scotland Tonga. I had Scotland winning this by 31 points, and Scotland actually exceeded expectations, and they ended up winning it by 46 points, which was pretty good. The winger, I think it's Rufus McLean, was absolutely outstanding, scored a hat-trick as well as the boy Stain. So Scotland blooding a couple of other players as well. It was excellent to see, and get them to pick up a win. It was nice to see Tonga as well get some opportunities against Tier 1 nations. But I'll speak later on in the video about the eligibility rules for World Rugby as well. But I hope that they're going to benefit more in the future if they have these type of fixtures. So the second game was Wales-New Zealand, and to be honest, we tend in Wales to get a bit hyped up with the New Zealand game. It's like, oh, we haven't beaten them since 1953, and is this going to be our time? Well, no, not really. It was never going to be our time. The All Blacks could have smashed us by more, quite frankly. I thought Wales were decently competitive for around 65 minutes, and then as soon as Wales scored the try to make it 28-16, I thought that was it. Effectively, once Wales emptied their bench, which the quality drop off was absolutely massive for Wales, and the injection of quality from the All Blacks in the last 12-15 minutes blew the score out, really. So I had All Blacks winning by 20. Effectively, they won by 38 points in the end, which, to be quite honest with you, yeah, it blew the score out. But again, that type of result was always on the cards for Wales, unfortunately, because such a lack of availability to their English-based players. But even so, I think the Wales probably would have been 20 points losers, quite frankly, as well, in the game. I will say, I think the Welsh Rugby Union are absolutely fucking ridiculous for scheduling in the All Blacks for the first weekend of the Autumn Nation series. What pisses me off is that we constantly have 4 games every single autumn, and we always start off with a loss, pretty much. The only time I remember us winning an opening game in the autumn was in 2019. Or 2018, I should say, when we had a clean sweep. And I just find it bizarre that the union for pursuit of money constantly hamstrings the national team, who they leech off to try and make sure that they generate the income for the fucking game, and they hamstring them all the time by slamming in an All Blacks or a really tough first game every single autumn, when, quite frankly, you look at other nations. You look at Ireland. Ireland always have a top team, a mid-ranking team, and then they have a tier 2 or tier 3 team. So, for instance, Ireland this year had the All Blacks, Argentina, and Japan. Now, Japan, one can argue, is not a tier 3 nation. They're probably not, but they played like a tier 3 nation. We'll go into that now. England, for instance, England played Tonga, South Africa, and Australia. Scotland, they played Tonga, South Africa, and Argentina. I think it was the last one. Or Australia, yeah. But it just seems that Wales constantly go for the big 3 because they know they're going to get maximum sellouts in the stadium. That's fine. Why are you scheduling the All Blacks in when you know you haven't got half your team available? That's just ridiculous. Anyways, on from that. Round 1, crap for Wales, good for New Zealand, brilliant for Scotland. Round 2. So I will say, Ireland. I did have Ireland with a 10-point win for this, but that was on the presumption that Japan was actually going to turn up and play well. and I didn't foresee that Japan would turn up and play absolutely shockingly that they did, and also that Ireland would click. Ireland were really impressive in the autumn, and this kicked it off really. So Ireland with a 55-point win there, which blew out my 10-point win score there. Then we got Italy 9, New Zealand 40. Italy 9, New Zealand 47, which is similar to the score I had. I had Italy 13, New Zealand 49. I thought Italy were quite competitive, I will say. Again, very similar to the Wales game. The All Blacks blew the score out with about 25 minutes to go. I thought Italy had put in some fantastic work initially in the first half. Were very, very unlucky not to score a try. But their inaccuracies just absolutely kill them, Italy. I thought they were fantastic on the floor, and they actually were winning the breakdown battle pretty well. But when New Zealand tightened the game up, they just totally blew Italy away then. Then we got England 56, Tonga 19. England that was my prediction, and then England went on to win it 69-3. So a 66-point win there for England, which is a far superior to my 37-point win for England. Either way, it was good to see some new England caps, and we knew that they were going to blow Tonga away. Tonga probably not with the fitness available or the cohesion for such a short time together, but they were blown away by England. I will say there was a fantastic cover tackle as well by, I think it was Courtney Laws, on the Tongan winger or fullback, and what a brilliant covering tackle. That was probably worth seeing just for that. We knew that England were going to blow away with the tries, but what a tackle that was. That was amazing to watch. Then we've got Wales versus South Africa. Now Wales, we did, fair play. Wales did stump up, towards the end of the game, and were pretty good, and much better, and improved performance from the New Zealand game. Again, very much resorting to this sort of aerial contest with South Africa, and effectively South Africa's last 15 minutes, or 10 minutes I should say, of the game really sort of put Wales in the arm wrestle, turned the screw, got the driving line out try, and then really sort of didn't allow Wales to enter South Africa's half in the second half. Really didn't really give them too many easy points like they did do in the first half. So South Africa with a 5-point win there, which was a lot less than my 12-point South African win. So Wales were a lot more competitive in that game. Then we've got France against Argentina. This was a 9-point win for France, but I did have France winning by 24 in my prediction. But I will say, what a game this was on that weekend. Brilliant game. I thought Argentina were actually going to upset France. France were playing pretty poorly, to be honest with you. It didn't seem as if Jalibert and Tamak were clicking whatsoever. That 10-12 axis was really sort of unbalanced. When you had Fiku there at 13, there was nobody really getting over the gain line and giving you front football off any first phase or any set piece whatsoever. I think France really missed that Vakatawa style centre, and he did change a little bit when they brought on Jonathan Dante in the game as well later on, to get some go forward. Then he did change, and they did end up squeaking Argentina away, but it was a really fiery game, and one of the best, I will say, of the autumn. Then we've got Australia versus Scotland. So I actually went for Australia on this one. This is the first one I got wrong. So I went for Australia instead of Scotland. Australia, I've got to be honest, their backline play was pretty poor. I don't think I've ever seen an Australian team with such a really poor attack. It seems that the other components of their game that have lacked over the last, say, 3 years, set piece, particularly at line out, and set piece, and how can I put it, even just making sure that they stick in games in their defence as well. I think that Dave Rennie's really trying to focus on building those blocks back first, the foundation, before adding on the sort of the cherry on top of the cake, which is the attack. But I'm just really surprised with the sort of attackers that they had available, that they weren't able to to further break Scotland down, and Scotland deserved their win in the end, 15-13, and it was a good win for them. So yeah, excellent. And then the next game of round 3, this one was Italy versus Argentina. So Italy 16, Argentina 37. Italy, for how well they played against the All Blacks, they were absolutely shocking against Argentina. Argentina really didn't have to do anything at all. And they effectively lived off Italian mistakes in the first half and blew the score out pretty much in the first half and early in the second half as well. And it was a really poor performance from Italy, and I did initially go for a 2-point Argentinian win, which turned out to be 21 in the end, so I was very surprised by that, but it's good to see Argentina back to winning ways anyways for that one. The next one then, I had Scotland South Africa. I did have South Africa winning by 6 points, but I do say I think South Africa really did arm wrestle Scotland and did do a job on them. Quite honestly, it'll be quite chafing really for people like Finn Russell. I did agree with. I think that like the Lions maybe should have played a little bit more rugby than they did in the second and third tests against South Africa. But when they did, they got caught, Scotland, playing a little bit too much rugby, and then also the sort of that contact battle as well was lost, unfortunately, and the battle at the breakdown, particularly in the second half, which led to the 15-point defeat then, unfortunately. Then we've got Ireland versus New Zealand. So I actually had New Zealand winning this one. I had them winning by 11 points, and I will say any New Zealand defeat is welcome. And that's no offence to my Kiwi viewers, but I just think for the sake of the sport, it's nice to have somebody beating the All Blacks, as much as for the All Blacks to make sure that they know that they are human, that they can be beaten, and that there are vulnerabilities in their game. And I did think that whilst the All Blacks scored some fantastic tries against Ireland, that's probably the best Irish performance I've ever seen. The previous 2 games against New Zealand, where they beat them in Soldier Field, seemed like that they caught the All Blacks on a bad day. The second time they beat the All Blacks in Dublin in 2019, was it 2018? It pretty much everything went to plan. That Ireland didn't make any mistakes whatsoever in that game, but there was no way that Ireland could have improved upon that performance on 2018. However, the brand of rugby that they played against New Zealand was unbelievable. Their defensive covering, I thought James Lowe had the game of his life. Caelan Doris was amazing. I think Ireland have got the best props in the world as well, in Porter and Ty Furlong as well. They've got an amazing pack, Ireland, absolutely amazing. And to see them now offloading and playing a more expansive game, I thought was unbelievable. It's really, really scary and really threatening for the other countries in the Six Nations, really. So brilliant win, I got to be honest. Then we got England versus Australia. I did go for England on this, but didn't think it was going to be that convincing. So I went for a 3-point England win, but 17 is what they won by. And I will say Freddie Stewart looked pretty good at 15 for England, but I will say the size on the guy, I don't know whether 15 is going to be his permanent position. He strikes me that he may come into the centre later on in his career. He's a very big guy, and he reads the game very, very well at fullback. I'm just wondering whether he is, being such a tall guy, physical guy, is that the position for him? When you see other fullbacks and their how they've been playing as well. I mean, he has been fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but Jacob Stockdale was fantastic in 2018, and where's he now? He's nowhere. So I don't know whether that's the position for him long term, but I like Freddie Stewart. I think he's great. England thoroughly deserved a win over Australia. Again, Australia's attack was nowhere, absolutely nowhere to be seen. shocking. So I did enjoy the French game against Georgia, and I got quite a similar score. So I went for a 32-point win for France. They ended up winning by 26, but I thought Georgia were really spirited. France did blow the score out a little bit, and because it was quite competitive, particularly first half with Georgia and France. And I thought Georgia were playing some fantastic rugby. Probably a phase or two away from scoring a try or two themselves. But in the end, France's quality just told, and they tore through Georgia in the end. So very very good win for France, and just kept their momentum going. You know, gave another few caps, spread their caps around to some of their depth players who they want around for 2023 and also for 2027. So I think France are going to win the World Cup in the next two World Cup cycles. They'll either win it in 2023 or they're going to win it in 2027. Either or. I think they're going to be able to say that they won the World Cup in the next few years or so. The last game then was Wales-Fiji, which was quite enjoyable. I will say a red card. Fiji were fantastic, and I think the scoreline massively flatters Wales. In all honesty, I thought Wales were pretty crap for large parts of the game. Some individual brilliance. Rhys Ahmed's try was fantastic. Some obvious things that you have to do against the Pacific Island teams when you must go tight and play tight in order to take the game away from them early with a driving line out. But again, Wales started off as they always do against Fiji for some reason. They always start off poorly and conceded an early try. I don't understand that red card by Fiji. Just absolute idiocy, to be quite honest. It definitely is a red card. It's definitely foul play, and unfortunately Fiji got what they deserved. But you could see that with a lot more cohesion and time together, Fiji are a serious team when they play against tier 1 nations. They can really get up for it, which is strange with Fiji because they nearly lost to Spain the week before, which Spain were winning I think quite well into the second half against Fiji before they took the game away from them. So yeah, a very strange team, but I think they shot themselves in the foot there, Fiji, and Wales got away with one there. So last weekend then, weekend 4. So I think I got a couple wrong on this weekend. So we had Scotland playing against Japan. I did have a very similar scoreline, so really entertaining game, and I think Scotland in the end deserved it. But Japan did play a lot better than they did against Ireland in this one, and Japan also again, Japan they should have lost a game the week before against Portugal, and had it not been for a last minute try interception, they could have ended up losing to Portugal. But I thought they were massively improved against Scotland, played very well, and Scotland though just edged them out and beat them by 9 points as well. Then we had Italy beating Uruguay by 7. I will be honest, I thought it was there for Uruguay to win this one, or at least get a draw, because they were camped on the Italian line, and Italy were really panicking. This one was Italy's so-called banker game that they were definitely going to win and break whatever it is, a 20-game losing streak, and Italy nearly completely fucked that up. And credit to Uruguay, but Italy are going to have a long look at themselves, because for large parts in the autumn they were good against New Zealand, and then in fits and starts against Argentina, but they were quite poor. And I will be honest, I know Garbisi is a quality 10, but somebody needs to have a word with Garbisi about his aimless fucking kicking. It's doing my head in every time I watch Italy. He's putting bombs up, no winger chasing. He's kicking long, nobody chasing. His kick variation is just, at times it was shocking, and I think they allowed Uruguay to stay in the game, which was typical Italy really. But hey ho, at least they broke their duck anyways, and they got a win before the Six Nations. Then we go England, South Africa. So I got this one wrong. I did think South Africa were going to arm wrestle England. I I did go for South Africa 26, England 17, but then England surprised me and went 10 points better and won 27-26, and it could so easily have been a South African win, but they did cough up a penalty late in the game for Marcus Smith to win it. So it was a bit of an aggressive encounter as well, but yeah, it was a well fought win for a young England side, and I think they're going to build well on that. South Africa must be absolutely knackered. They've been in bubble and in camp for months on end now, so hopefully the South African boys will have a good rest, and the English boys, fair play, hats off, good win there. Right, Wales. I had Wales losing by 4 against Australia. Wales actually won it right at the very death with a penalty by Rhys Priestland. I'm glad for Rhys Priestland because he's had a lot of critics over the years, and I've been one of them. I'll freely admit that. I thought that he was fantastic in the 2011 World Cup. He was fantastic for Wales in the 2012 Grand Slam year. And I don't know what it was, but you could even see in the 2012 Grand Slam year, his form just fell off a cliff, really. And he was really, really poor when Wales played out in Australia and in the autumn of 2012. He copped it a little bit before he moved over to England, over to Bath to play. Very much like Alex Cuth, but I don't know. I can't put my finger on why the form fell off a cliff. But he is a quality 10, no doubt about that. And fair play to him. He won Wales the game. Wales again. A beneficiary of a red card. How many red cards have Wales had for the other team against them now? So Wales very, it seems that a red card for the other team against Wales tends to galvanise the other team. Like Wales nearly lost to Ireland in the Six Nations, could have lost to Scotland in the Six Nations with it. Fiji as well were winning for a good portion of the game against Wales the week before, and then Australia had played exceptionally well, fought themselves to pretty much be winning the game by 2 points, in injury time, and then cough up a penalty, and Wales steal it at the end there. France against New Zealand. I did have France winning this, so thank God I stuck my neck out for this game. But I did not think it was going to be as comfortable or as sensational as it was. 15-point win for France, deserved every part of it. I thought Antamac was sensational. That break from behind his own line was typical French. I thought if they'd scored that try, I think I was just going to fucking rip my eyes out, because you would never see any rugby better than that as long as you live. That is French rugby back. When they are doing stuff like that and they're beating France at home, beating the All Blacks at home, they're back, they're serious. I think they're going to win the World Cup. They are that good, and they've got another 2 Six Nations and a tour to come before it. I just think they're going to do it. That may blow up in my face because they should have probably won the World Cup in 2007. A crap England team got to the final of the World Cup and basically South Africa did everything they could to just basically grind England out of the final of that tournament, where it was for France pretty much. But yeah, wow, what a fucking performance that was by France. Then we got the last game then, Ireland. I had them winning by 21. I think by winning by 46 really did show Ireland's re-emergence as a serious, I'd say a top 4. There's 4 countries at the moment in World Rugby which are top serious players, and they would be Ireland, South Africa, Ireland, South Africa, New Zealand and France. And the reason I don't include that in with England just yet, I want to see England finish 5th in the Six Nations last year. They go through these patches, England, where they have a couple of championship wins and then they're crap, then a couple of championship wins and then they're crap. I want to see where these young England players can take them. I think England are a cut above anybody else in the 5th position, and then you've got a bit of a mixture then of Scotland, Argentina, Wales, Australia. after that then, pretty much on par with each other. Um, but Ireland are looking pretty good. Anyway, so that's my predictions. That's what I've gone through. So that's that. My review of best team. So who were the best team did I think were? Oh, I haven't written anything down. All I've got written down is best team. So I'm doing this off the cuff right now. So best team of the autumn. I will say Ireland, and for the reasons I've said before, which is the development of their offloading game is unbelievable. Their pack is, I would stick my neck out on the line and say that their pack, along with South Africa's, are the best pack in the world. I think they're better than South Africa's in certain aspects, but South Africa's are better than theirs at the set piece. Ireland look, especially if they, it doesn't look as if, and what I saw one of the pundits say after the New Zealand game, which was very, I agreed with, is that unlike Joe Schmidt's Ireland, where everything revolved around the 10, the decision maker, to fire the backline, fire the forwards, I think the type of attack that Ireland have transitioned into doesn't require one particular person's input, meaning Johnny Sexton. You know, the guy is what, 36, 37 now, and he's an exceptionally good rugby player and one of the greatest to play the game. But where with the best one in the world, of Johnny Sexton, he's playing 50% of the games at the moment, because he's going off after half an hour, 50 minutes, 45 minutes. You know, he's not riding the hits as he used to. But to see people like, I thought Joey Carberry was excellent against Argentina. And I hope to see that, if he does take the shirt eventually, that he does get a good run. But Harry Byrne looks like a really good Irish up and coming 10 as well. I gotta be honest, I think Ireland's age grade and their development is second to none. Because the difference is that whereas England has got a fantastic age grade, very rarely do you see a lot of the English boys, other than say like Freddie Stewart. There's a sprinkling that will get game time with their clubs. Ireland's boys pretty much like go into their provinces immediately, particularly Leinster and Ulster, and we're seeing a lot of that, and that's going to pay dividends massively for Ireland later on. And I really hope Ireland do get to at least a semi-final of the World Cup next time, because I think if they're not going to do it with this particular group now, with the quality that they've got, I don't know what they're going to do, because I just think that they've got so much quality at the moment. It's unbelievable. So Ireland, that's my best team. Right, best top 3 players. So for me, my best 3 players of the autumn is going to be Marcus Smith, number 10 for England. These are in no order, by the way. So Marcus Smith, Caelan Doris, who was voted man of the series, James Lowe is my 3. So Marcus Smith, Caelan Doris of Ireland, James Lowe of Ireland, Marcus Smith obviously of England. Best comeback. So best comeback, not meaning it in a game, but the best comeback story for me was Ellis Jenkins coming back for Wales after 3 years out of crippling injuries, coming back and becoming captain of Wales. That is unbelievable. He's a brilliant player, fantastic 7, pretty much, was absolutely, for me, he was man of the match against South Africa, and he was exceptional again against Australia. The game kind of passed him by against Fiji, but his quality shone through in the games that mattered. So he was fantastic. So Ellis Jenkins, best comeback. So best 3 games. So the best 3 games of the autumn were, in no order particularly, France versus New Zealand. French victory was amazing, really needed it. New Zealand came back, and I thought they were going to win with their comeback, and they scored some superb tries. Second game, Ireland versus New Zealand. Again, very similar story. Ireland very disappointed not to go in, with a couple of tries under their belt before half time. Unbelievable New Zealand defence, I've got to say, in the first half. Probably the best New Zealand defence I've ever seen. But Ireland really, really turned the screw second half and up the tempo and took their chances. Third game, England South Africa. Really a lot of needle in it. it went back and forth. A lot going off the ball, which is kind of good to see as well. I do like to see some of that as well. And yeah, overall fantastic game. And one, as much, there's nothing against the South African viewers, but you know, I think that was one for England's youngsters to come of age and win that one. And I think it was maybe a game too far for South Africa, but again they were winning pretty much until 1 minute before the end. But at least they get to have time off and reassess now, anyways. Okay, so best moment. The best moment of the autumn was for me. Yeah, the only moment for me I think was Romain Antamak of France decides to run the ball back from his own in-goal area against the All Blacks. You've got to have you either got to be French or you've got to be insane to do that. And luckily for Romain, he's French, and he ran it back. Absolutely unbelievable pass to Melvin Jaminet, who for me was one of the best players. Just about missed out on my best three players. What a fullback he is, what a find he is. Absolutely sensational Jaminet. And then popping it off to Dupont, and I wish that could have ended up in a try. It was very similar to the try from the end of the world where New Zealand sort of scored a similar try against the All Blacks back in, I think it was 1994, if I'm right, 94, because I remember they won the Test series over in New Zealand that time. So that is my moment, and I'm going to have a little comment now on the Six Nations upcoming. So what I've seen of the autumn. Where are Italy? So Italy is quite worrying because I know they had a couple of players out. They did get over the line and beat Uruguay, not as convincingly as what I thought. They squandered an opportunity to beat Argentina at home by poor display, but yet they put in a valiant performance against the All Blacks. I feel it's acceptable, and it's easy to be valiant when you know you're going to lose. But when a match is there to be won, I think that Italy are so fragile mentally from constant defeats and lack of knowledge about how to close games down that I just think that it's becoming ingrained upon in that squad now and ingrained upon within Italian elite rugby, unfortunately. And they would do well, I think, by entertaining the idea of not playing teams like New Zealand and South Africa for about 2 years. That maybe that they want to reschedule their autumns so that they maybe are able to win at least 2 games in the autumn. Because I find that particularly when you watch the World Cup with Italy, when Italy are able to win more than 1 game, they start to open up, they start to express themselves, their confidence goes up. And I'd like to see, for me, if I was Italian coach, I'd love to see a series where you play against the likes of perhaps an opening game against either Uruguay, USA or Canada, followed up by a game against Fiji or Argentina. Probably I'd say Fiji, and then ending the series then with a game against somebody like either Argentina or Australia. And that's not guaranteed that they would beat either Argentina or Australia, but they would at least have a better shot if they had two wins under their belt prior to that anyways. Italy, I think, I can't see them winning the game in the Six Nations, but then Wales may do them a favour, and Wales usually do teams a favour and fall off a cliff for some reason, and they might give Italy that win that they need. On to Wales. I think the devoid of our first line players. I mean, Wales were missing about 15 first line players and a lot more against New Zealand. We look very, the cupboards look very bare, put it that way. And I think that there are certain players who I can say now are safely past their sell by date, unfortunately. I think that the last hurrah of winning the Six Nations should have been the last hurrah also for a number of Test players. I think that people, I think there are certain people in the squad who now will find it very, very difficult to reach form that they've previously reached before. And two of them I know for sure will be Alan Wynne-Jones and Jonathan Davis, and that's tough to say because of what they've given Wales. They've given Wales five championships. They've won a Lions tour, and they've given everything. They've given hundreds of caps and wins and great wins. But realistically, a 37-year-old lock with now 2 shoulder injuries within the last 6 months, and a centre who has never really recovered from the cruciate ligament injury to his knee since the 2019 World Cup. I just, unfortunately, I think Wales now, and also I will say I am, as much I understand Wales won the championship last year. I think what happened in the championship last year was as much as Wales reverting back to type with a blend of PVAC rugby than it was of transitioning to PVAC rugby, if that makes sense, because this happened in 2013 as well with Wales. Wales under Robert Howley were being told to play a certain way, and I know for a fact that in the 2013 championship, during the Ireland game where they lost at home and they were getting pumped, that there was an immediate change within the team, and that effectively that the team were not so much coaching themselves, but that the on-field decisions were left, and they were going to revert back to type. They were going to go back, solid defence, solid set piece, win the battle on the floor, arm wrestle teams and squeeze teams rather than try to play, trying to divert away from what made them successful. And I think that I could see the shoots, unfortunately, the black shoots of doom for Wales and Six Nations. I think that Wales are going to lose convincingly in Dublin in the opening game. I think Wales are going to lose by about 15 to 20 points in Dublin. That's how bad it's going to be. Unless we have unless Ireland have a raft of injuries, or Wales somehow find some form from nowhere. Or maybe Ireland have another red card, you never know. But I can see Wales losing perhaps 3 games, maybe even 4 in the Six Nations, because if Pivac decides to persist with his now chosen favourites, we could be in a bit of trouble. I am not convinced by Wayne Pivac as Wales coach, quite frankly, and I've seen his teams, particularly with the Scarlets. What people got to remember is when he signed the deal to become the Wales coach, go and have a look at the last season of the Scarlets, and go and look at even the successful seasons of the Scarlets. There is a notable trend within his teams where they play a certain way that they are easily shut down. They are easily negated by teams who are more streetwise and will be able to negate your go forward, to destroy you at single rucks or 2-man rucks, to drive you off the ball, and also the fact that lack of confidence and a poor skill level, which unfortunately Wales have not been used to throwing the ball around over the last couple of years. That then will endanger you and concede ground, and you're just shoveling shit basically. And I genuinely think Wales are going to lose in Twickenham. Wales are going to lose in Dublin. I hope Wales get some modicum of revenge against France in Cardiff after the last time, because they shouldn't have lost in Cardiff in 2019. That was just 2020. That was a fucking joke. Similarly, he was gutted in 2021 at the end of the game. But after seeing France's performances in the autumn, I mean, for me, they are the favourites for the championship. So for me, France, they've got 2 sides, 2 teams effectively that they could put out internationally, and probably win 3 games in the Six Nations at least. The problem with France is that you know, not so much even the unpredictability of them. I think they are now predictable in the sense that you know what you're going to get, but you need, in a team of 15, you need around 10 players on game, 10 to 12 players on their game to win the game. And when we see them play against England last year and Scotland, I would say less than 8 players were playing well on those given days in those given games. And whilst France have got quite a lot of players to come back, I would be very, very surprised to see what they would do should now Dupont go down with a serious injury, or Dupont go down injured and not have a run in the team. Because I like Baptiste Serran, but he now seems to be third or fourth choice scrum half. There are a couple of different options. We'll wait and see. But I think France for me, you know, just with the way the fixtures lie as well, I think that France for the title. Ireland, it'd be a shootout for me. France or Ireland for the title. I think England are going to win. They're going to put their Six Nations back on track, and they may come second or third with 4 wins. I think they probably will beat. I think they'll beat Ireland in Twickenham, and but they're going to lose to France in Paris, and yeah, they're going to beat Wales. I think they'll beat Wales no problem in Twickenham, to be honest with you. Anyways, so that's my Six Nations. My table will be. I'm going to go for it here. My table is going to be France, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and then Italy. So that's what I'm going to go for. And then the last part of this video is going to be just a comment on the World Rugby eligibility rules. So World Rugby came out recently, last week or so, 2 weeks ago, and they've now ratified the ability of players who qualify for other nations to now switch. There are some stipulations to that. So, for instance, you can only switch once. So you can't go, say, New Zealand to Samoa, back to New Zealand. You can't do that. You can only switch once. So people like Malachi Fekitoa, Charles Piutau, players like this now can switch and go play for Tonga, which I think would be absolutely amazing for Tonga particularly, and Samoa, because I think that there's a lot of player drain, particularly going to the All Blacks and Australia. We know why it is, but you know, the fact is that somebody who's had a couple of caps but haven't played for 5 years shouldn't be denied the possibility of playing for the country, another country. You know, the thing is, we've got to accept the way the world is these days. I mean, there's a lot of dual nationalities. You know, even teams in the UK have got a lot of. You know, every team in Britain has got players born in other nations, born from or qualify through residency. I mean, you look at people for Wales. I mean, you look at people like Willis Halaholo. You look at Duan van der Merwe for Scotland. You know, England have got quite a few players like that as well. You know, so it's no problem. But I'm just glad that it's not all being sort of told to the Pacific teams to, oh well, sorry boys, but they're playing for the All Blacks, or they've had one cap for the All Blacks and they can't play for you again. But thankfully now they can move back. So I would be very, very interested to see who declares and goes back over there now. So that'd be superb to see, and particularly the strength. You would really, really now see the strength of Islander rugby, I think, particularly when you get players like, I was thinking about the potential Tongan backline the other day, and it's just unbelievable. You've got people like Fekitoa, Piutau, Fafita. Oh my God, you've got such a completely different, and that would give those teams a massive lift, make them more competitive on the global scale as well, and it would just improve teams overall. And we will have shocks here and there, so that can only be good for the game. Anyways, I'll just wrap up this review then of the Autumn Nations Cup. I hope you enjoyed the comparisons as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes now in the Six Nations. I'll be doing a preview video before then as well. But for now, until there's anything else comes on the rugby front, that'll be it for now. and hope you agree with a couple of the things that I've said. If you haven't, that's fine, but just give me some feedback, and also let me know what your favourite team was, favourite player was, favourite match was. Be interesting to see what people's feedback was, because it's a game. At the end of the day, we love the game, and opinions is what matters as well. So yeah.